Great. Okay, thanks. I am indeed Rachel Calabro. I'm not Liz. I'm um, logged in on our Zoom account, so my name is not correct, but I am Rachel. We are from the Department of Environmental Management in the Office of the Director. And I'm gonna have Liz give us some background before we get started.
Great. And I am Liz Stone from Rhode Island DEM. Welcome, everyone. We have got, I think, about 22 people on tonight, which is perfect. We are recording this meeting. I'm going to go over a couple of quick ground rules turn my volume up here. I think it's kind of low. We're going to go over a few quick ground rules in just a minute, but I did want to mention, and it may already be going across the bottom of your screen. It is for mine because I think Rachel enabled it, but there is a closed captioning for today. So if you go to the bottom to the closed captioning icon down on the right, you can then set your speaking language and pick your caption language. So if you would prefer to see your captions come across in Spanish or Portuguese, the option is there. And then on the next slide, if you want to go ahead, Rachel, are a couple of quick ground rules for tonight. So just reminding everybody, this session is being recorded so that we can accurately capture the conversation we're going to have tonight. And we do intend to post this recording publicly for the benefit of others. So just kind of putting everybody on notice out there that we're being recorded. And we're hoping that others who may not be able to join us tonight can watch this conversation at a later date and they can potentially learn a little bit more about what's going on the topic of climate change in Rhode Island. Just keep yourself on mute, please, to limit distractions. Please make space and take space, especially later on if we do have a Q&A and some conversation after Rachel's presentation. And just be mindful of how much airtime you may take. And we do encourage people to voice your thoughts after Rachel goes through some slides. There are multiple ways to participate after the presentation. You can raise your hand to be called on and absolutely use the chat. And we thank everybody in advance for their participation. For your convenience throughout the conversation today, I'm going to be putting a bunch of resources kind of matching what Rachel's talking about. So if she's talking about a particular plan, I'm going to put the link to that plan in the chat. If she's talking about a particular website where you can go find more information, I'll be adding that to the chat. So those resources will be popped into the chat throughout the meeting. So feel free to take a look there if you want to go find a little bit more about some of the items that Rachel might be talking about. With that, again, Q&A at the end for some questions, and I will mute myself and turn it back over to Rachel, who's going to take it from here.
Great, thanks, Liz. So I'm going to have about 30 minutes of slides, discussion, and then we'll open it up to chat with everybody. If you have particular questions, you can put it in the chat while we're talking, and I'll try to answer things as we go or at the end. So starting with a little bit of background for Rhode Island, the impacts in Rhode Island include heat. We have had the 10 warmest years, and 2024 was the warmest year on record so far. It was 3.5 degrees above the 20th century average globally, and then in Providence, we've seen about 2 degrees of heating, and that's average heating. So we see this with urban heat islands, we see this with utility bills, and health problems, which I'll get into. We also have issues with precipitation where we have more rain throughout the year, about 10 more inches of rain, but it comes in more generous dumpings. We've had more days when there's either an inch or 2 inches of precipitation in a day. And then between that, we have often drought conditions between the rain. So that has problems with flooding, stormwater, infrastructure damage, and interruptions in our daily lives. Rising seas, so sea level is accelerating. We've seen over 11 inches of sea level rise at the Newport Tide Station. This is affecting our coastal neighborhoods and our infrastructure as well. So the Narragansett Bay has also warmed about 3 degrees. And the last 5 years in particular have been very, very warm. And this contributes to algae blooms and changes in fish composition. So in terms of health, we're seeing increased asthma and allergies because the growing season is longer and we have more pollen and increasing um, increasing length of the allergy season. Mosquitoes and ticks are increasing um, those tick-borne diseases. We have injuries, increased waterborne harmful algal blooms, as I mentioned, impacts to the food supply and to clean water. And then just a lot of anxiety that sort of creeps up when weather systems are not predictable and we're looking at hurricane season and all of that. Um, so the heat that I mentioned, a lot of the heat that we're pumping into the atmosphere through global warming is actually ending up in the oceans. And a lot of that is in the upper ocean. So ocean surface temperatures are increasing faster than anywhere else. And that is also causing extreme weather events because warmer water creates warmer atmosphere, which increases the amount of moisture that's held in the atmosphere, more evaporation, stronger storms. All of that is fueled by this ocean temperature, which you can see on this graph. The last 2 years in particular have seen a huge jump in ocean surface temperature. And on the globe over there, you can kind of see a big red spot near the Gulf of Maine, which is our region. And our region is one of the fastest heating, the that's growing the fastest on the globe. So that is really giving us a challenge in terms of fish species and extreme weather and things in the Northeast. And then you can see how that relates to the global average surface temperature. The north of the globe, the northern regions of the globe are heating a lot faster. The Arctic in particular is heating extremely fast. And again, you can see there's on the globe, you can kind of see North America that New England is one of the fastest warming regions on the globe. The Arctic warming has also caused us to have these polar vortex where sometimes we get super, super cold weather. Like this last February was colder than average. So we can have that too. This is all fueling these billion-dollar disasters that we're seeing from year to year. The last 2 years have seen the largest number, not necessarily the largest in terms of billions of in terms of dollar, but in terms of the number of events. So back in the 1980s, it may have been months between when a disaster would hit. Now it's about a few weeks or every 8 days, or I forget exactly, but it's very, very often that we're being hit back to back in different parts of the globe by these disasters. So that's my background on what's happening with the climate. Um, we are in Rhode Island, part of the Executive Climate Change Coordinating Council. DEM's director, Terry Gray, is the chair of the council. It has 13 member agencies that work together to come up with policies and plans to promote clean energy and reduce pollution and improve public health around climate. The EC4 has been provided with a spending budget in the last 2 years. The first year, the legislature allocated $3 million from the regional greenhouse gas fund that comes to the state. And then last year we got 1.5 million. And then going forward from here on, unless they give us more, it will continue to be 1.5 million. We have taken those funds, come up with a spending plan. We have generally, we go out to public comment and we work with folks to fine tune our list of projects that the agencies have put forward. And then we use that to fund some of the proposals that we've gotten from the agencies. The 2025 spending plan was just approved in October, and so we're working on those projects now. And in June, we'll start soliciting for next year's projects. All of this is governed by the Act on Climate, which was passed by the legislature, and it includes the emissions reduction targets that we have to meet. You can see those on the left. The Act also requires us to submit a strategic plan every 5 years, starting with 2025. So this year, we'll be writing that 2025 plan, and that's why we have you gathered here. This is our kickoff for a bunch of different workshops and meetings and strategy sessions to put together that strategic plan. So we're hoping that after tonight, you feel like you're excited enough to come and join us at some of those other topic-based meetings. And then we're finalizing our online climate dashboard. This has a bunch of metrics in it about our greenhouse gas emissions, about electric vehicles on the road, about where we are with various pieces of our policy. And then we're working on environmental justice with a work group and some grants and things like that. The EC4 has an advisory board and a science and technical advisory board. The advisory board represents municipalities, environmental justice, housing, health, and they're charged with making recommendations from the community, and they are assisting us with communication and outreach. So they have asked a consultant, or they've asked for consultant support to do additional community meetings later on in the year. So we're going to be working with them to support more community engagement. And then the Science and Technical Advisory Board, they represent more academia and planning and business, and they are charged with really looking at some of the key management decisions that we make and some of the important developments that are going on in research to help us communicate the scientific and technical information. We also do work on resilience. The EC4 is tasked with resilience, and it's in the Act on Climate. We started with the Resilient Roadie Plan, which was a strategy that was first created in 2018. Then we followed that up with an impact report in 2021 to see how we were doing on the projects that were listed. And then this past December, we finalized the State of Resilience report, which is again another update to list out all of the programs and management decisions and all of the pieces of resilience policy that we do in Rhode Island. It's a really great list, an accumulation of all of our different projects and policies, and I would encourage you to take a look through it and see all the great work that's going on. It also has some data and mapping resources as well, if you're interested in looking at some of those maps. That was in December. That was pursuant to an executive order from the governor. And then in 2025, we are completing a statewide coastal resilience plan. This is part of the Act on Coasts, which the legislature passed last year. This is going to go beyond the other three plans to expand and provide an analysis of statewide vulnerability and project scoping for priority sites. So there's going to be a bunch of community work on that as well. So I encourage you to keep track of what's happening in that world. So I'm going to keep focusing here on mitigation because that's the focus of tonight's discussion, and really looking at cutting greenhouse gases. That's like our sole purpose in life right now with this 2025 plan. We're living and breathing, cutting greenhouse gases. So this is our current inventory. This is where we are right now as of 2022 anyway. Transportation, you can see, is the biggest sector. Residential buildings comes in a close second, along with commercial. So if you included all of the residential, commercial, and industrial buildings, that comes in a close second to transportation. And right now we are, we measure this all against a 1990 baseline. So that's where we start. And then we measure against that. And so from that to now, we've reduced 18.3%. We also have natural and working lands, which take carbon out of the atmosphere and they sequester it. So we can use those natural lands to offset some of the emissions. So at this point in time, about 7.2% of our emissions are sequestered in natural lands. Since 1990, we have had some good declines in transportation. The biggest decline has been in electricity consumption, and part of that is because we are required to purchase renewable energy credits, getting towards a goal of 100% renewable electricity by the year 2033. That's a secondary goal that we have. So we're getting towards that. We also have really ramped up our renewables in this sector. And then residential heating has also declined with the warming temperatures, as well as efficiencies and heat pumps and things like that. So overall, we are below our 2020 mandate, but we are not yet there for our 2030 mandate. So that's where we're working towards now. We're working towards 45%. Right now we're at 18%. So we will hopefully get there soon. So how do we get there? So there's the end use energy, there's the transitioning of the buildings, vehicles, and other uses to electricity. So we're electrifying a lot of what we can electrify, or moving away from fossil fuels towards renewable fuels. We are increasing our energy efficiency and flexibility to enable all of this stuff to actually happen. So that's grid improvements, metering, all of the things that Rhode Island Energy is helping us do to make sure that we get the right energy to the right places in the most efficient way. And then we are decarbonizing the energy supply so that when we do electrify everything, that electricity is low carbon, zero and low carbon electricity. And then, of course, we are continuing to sequester the carbon by supporting our forests and other policies like removing food waste from the landfill and things like that. And then, of course, supporting all of this is the community. And so we have to make sure that the community is making that transition in a just way, that everybody can gain the benefits from this transition. So that includes the food waste, the public transportation being electrified, supporting bikes and active transportation, supporting food, locally grown food, access to food, supporting workers, and supporting green spaces. This is our timeline where we are right now in the beginning of 2025. We're in the middle of doing the big orange bar in the middle. That's our climate action strategy. So we are in the greenhouse gas modeling portion of this. We are going to start establishing some of our targets and actions in this process, and the community engagement part goes throughout. So you are all part of our community engagement, and you're going to help us identify targets and actions. And then you can see at the bottom, we have the resilience updates and the dashboard and some of the inventory and things like that. So that's kind of where we are. We have provided some grants to community groups as part of this so that they can work directly in their community and then inform the work that we're doing. So the African Alliance, Youth in Action, Green Energy Consumers, Roots to Empower, Building Futures, these are all either health equity zones. East Bay Community Action is a health equity zone. They have been working in the East Bay communities. Building Futures is doing some work with their community organizations and folks who have been part of their learning community and apprenticeships and things like that. So we're really grateful to these groups that are helping us out. And then some of the things that we're starting to plan for in our 2025 strategy include, as I mentioned, adopting electric vehicles and charging, and electrifying medium and heavy duty trucks. And there's a number of electric school buses already on the road in Rhode Island. We're looking at replacing equipment. So that's landscape and maintenance equipment, transit subsidies to help people gain access to transit with additional services, rapid bus services. We are supporting active transportation, and also land use strategies that support. In buildings, we're retrofitting state buildings. We have a Lead by Example program where we're focusing on renewable installations on state buildings. DEM is looking at doing some parking lots with canopies, solar canopies on parking lots with EV charging. We are looking at supporting municipalities with efficiency and electrification on their municipal buildings and helping them do microgrids. We are looking at the home weatherization and pre-weatherization programs. We're especially conscious of helping landlords so that folks who rent can have access to some of the benefits of these programs, including EV charging and efficiency in their homes so that they aren't overpaying for energy bills. Looking at food waste diversion, urban tree planting. We have agriculture programs that are supporting renewable energy on farms and other support for local farmers. And there's plenty more, which we will be working on throughout this process. So some of the state energy programs that we already have happening through the Office of Energy Resources, these are things that you can take advantage of as a homeowner or as someone in Rhode Island. There's the clean heat program. This is for heat pumps. The applications have mostly closed. Income eligible is still open. This was very, very popular. They spent the money quite quickly because a lot of people are switching right now to heat pumps. We are part of a New England-wide heat pump accelerator program. We're going to be supporting contractors and workers to have rebates for folks who are installing heat pumps and for workers to train them to provide heat pumps. Home efficiency, there are rebates for home electrification and appliance rebates and things like that as well. For the Rhode Island cities and towns, there are some energy efficiency and conservation block grants. There's an efficient buildings fund. These are available through OER and through our green, the infrastructure bank. So we have a green bank in Rhode Island, and it's where a lot of municipalities can apply for loans and grants. The Renewable Energy Fund and the Renewable Energy Growth Fund are also available for folks who want to put solar panels on their properties. And then Property Assessed Clean Energy is a similar way to finance these programs. We also received a $49 million competitive grant to do equitable access to solar energy. So these programs will be more for the low income communities, and we'll be working with the Infrastructure Bank, as I mentioned, Rhode Island Commerce, and others to stand up some of these programs, and that will be coming in the next year or two. So those are my slides about what's happening in Rhode Island right now. We have our next advisory board meeting on March 26th, and then in April, we'll be hosting our next EC4 council meeting. They're all hybrid meetings, so you can join on Zoom or you could come in person. And they're interesting to keep track of what's happening and the updates that we have. And you can also get all of our updates through the EC4 newsletter. This is the link for signing up for the newsletter. And if you've left us with your email address, we can either add you, or Liz will be putting this in the chat, and you can just go in and sign yourself up, and then you'll get all of the notifications for our meetings coming up and other things like grants and stuff like that.
Adding it to the chat right now. So if anybody wants to go in, and it's a very quick name, email address, add yourself. It's the best way to get information right into your inbox about all the engagement opportunities we have coming up.
Yeah. So these are the engagement workshops that we do have coming. This is all also on our climatechange.ri.gov webpage, and you can register for them right there on the webpage. We will have a few that are in person in March and April. Some of those don't have locations. Well, some of the locations are still being finalized, but we have the dates. So, Liz, is there anything that you want to add?
The only thing I wanted to add is for if you go back to the slide you were just on that had all the engagement opportunities. For the link that I have in the chat right now about joining our email list, you will receive in advance for every single one of these a reminder, the date's coming up. Here's how you register to get the Zoom link. Here's where it is going to be in person. It's the easiest way to literally get the information right in your inbox. You don't even need to go looking for it. We will put it right in front of you. So if you add your name to the email list, sorry, should be join our email list, not out email list, in the chat right now. It's the easiest way to get information about all of these, including where the locations will be for the in-person ones. Right now, if you go to, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat, if you go to the State Climate Change RI.gov website, our events page, you can sign up for all of the focus area meetings that are all virtual right now. There's already registration links there. So you can sign up and you can get them on your calendar right now. It's the more general stakeholder meetings that we're still looking for locations. So sign up, and information on all these will land in your inbox for your convenience and your easy reading, ease of access to join the meetings. That's about all I wanted to just emphasize, was where people can find information. The two meetings that are listed here too, the March 26th advisory board meeting, and then the next full state climate council meeting in April with a date to be decided. Exact same thing. Information about those meetings we pushed out to that email list. So you'll have the Zoom link and all the information you need to know on how to join that meeting, either in person or virtually. So I think we are good to jump for questions. I see one hand up right now. Our friend Sarah, if you want to jump in, Sarah, and we can start with some Q&A.
Thanks. I just assumed we were going to go to questions, so Good. am really eager to engage in all of this and to engage my community, which is the commercial fishing community. However, there's some preparation on our for those of us who are sort of stepping up to be the community connectors. Like, I feel like I need to do my homework in advance of coming to these sessions, and so it would help me and people like me out a lot to sort of have a better understanding of what kinds of questions will be posed at these sessions so that we can do some advanced legwork in gathering input from our communities so that we have something solid to deliver at every juncture of this process. Can you speak to that at all?
At a pretty high level, I would just offer up that many of the focused conversations, we'll take, for example, the one that's happening tomorrow on transportation. It will be a combination of a discussion from our our consultants on the outside that are helping us, and then breakout discussions. And in those breakout conversations, I think they're really gearing the conversations towards some conversations about what opportunities people see for themselves to take advantage of programs or work on certain areas. So for example, within transportation, someone from your community, Sarah, might talk about, hey, um, I really want to bring to the table the idea of what would it be? Electric motors. So obviously the technology is coming along, it's better, but they could put on the table as an opportunity that they think, the state needs to invest more resources in assisting potentially with rebates for electric boat motors, again, to get away from. So that's again opportunities, and then equally challenges. So to discuss what in particular it might a particular fisherman or a commercial fishing owner company, what are they particularly challenged by? Are they challenged by trying to understand how to put solar on their fish processing facility? Are they challenged by making sure that they have good access to charging at the dock so they don't have to run their boat while they're sitting there for power, things like that. So I think focusing on what are some of the opportunities that people see within the particular area we're talking about, and then what the particular challenges are that people are feeling, and how they feel they could help the state move forward, but they feel challenged in a certain way. Does that help?
Yeah, that actually helps a lot. Thanks.
Okay. All right. You'll see that common theme, I think, through a lot of the conversations.
And we do have a second to that in the chat. We have somebody supporting your idea. And yes, I think it's a very good idea for us to put out a little bit more information before each of these topic area meetings so that folks can either get some of the questions in advance or some of the topics that we're going to be discussing. And we're working on doing that as well. And then somebody asked a question in the chat about the funding situation. Kevin, this was you. I just saw you raise your hand. Do you want to ask your question?
Sure. Just curious about what you can tell us about the funding situation for some of the programs that were mentioned, particularly Clean Heat Rhode Island, some of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund programs, and so forth.
Yes. Clean Heat Rhode Island is, I think they've spent most of the funds that were originally allocated towards it. All of these, if we get additional funds, we can drop them into these programs now that they've been created. So it's nice that they exist, that we've stood them up, and now we can look for additional funds. The heat pump accelerator program is just getting started. That is $450 million for all of New England, but Rhode Island's going to see around 30 something million dollars out of that program, supporting contractors and others here in Rhode Island. The GGRF is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. That's tied up a little bit right now in federal shenanigans, and our infrastructure bank is a part of that, but I'm not quite sure. I don't know if Liz or Danielle have any other updates on those.
I don't have any of the other updates besides the fact that the greenhouse gas reduction fund that you may be hearing about in the news, et cetera, neither DEM or the Office of Energy Resources have a direct play in that program right now. Again, it is the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank that is on point for that particular program. So I am hoping that at the next EC4 council meeting, we may get a little more feedback from them on what is going on, but believe right now things are just kind of frozen and there's not necessarily any movement on there. But that's a combination of just what I'm hearing from my different particular news sources. But RIB should be able to provide more insights in coming weeks on what's going on that.
I could also add, this is Danielle Jameson from the Office of Energy Resources. So Clean Heat RI has run through majority of its funds, but we have alternate funding sources. So RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, will be kind of filling in the gap there moving forward. So the program will be opening up again for applications. It might look a little different, but we have more additional funding for that program. And then for the Solar for All and the heat pump accelerator program, like Rachel and Liz had mentioned, right now, those are kind of just business as usual. Obviously, we're approaching everything with caution, just given the uncertainty with federal funds, but we are able to move ahead and work business as usual for right now.
That's really good news on Clean Heat, Danielle. I wasn't aware that you guys were going to put some RGGI funds into that. That's great. And those are all state dollars. None of that's not federal dollars by any way that's impacted by anything that's happening under the new administration.
Carlos, do you have your hand raised?
I do.
I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay.
So my question's about the grids, and it's interesting the greenhouse gas reduction plan touches on a lot of the electrification and microgrids. I'm wondering, in the case like New Shoreham, where we are in Island, and what types of programs are there to bolster the education of people in their own grid, to provide resources. So for instance, if we're having a difference of opinion with the person running our utility, where can we find resources to help us understand the issues at stake? And whether or not the state has any guidance on that. For instance, we'll have a rate case coming up, and some of us are pushing for block rates to increase the possibility of conservation, or have energy hogs have to pay a larger share. But it's obvious that the utility doesn't want to do that. So where would we find some resources to make our case best? Thank you.
Carlos, I don't have any particular resource off the top of my mind that I can think of to share with you. I don't know if there are a few people on from OER, if they have any particular suggestions. That's a very specific, narrow area that DEM doesn't particularly work in. But if you would like to put your thoughts down either in the chat, or my email is in the chat, if you'd like to put that down, I can certainly try and find somebody to connect you with who can help provide a little more feedback on that particular topic. I'm sure there's somebody out that you can talk to. I know it's not me, but feel free to email, and we can take that offline and have a conversation about that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay.
This is Danielle again from OER. I'll add the OER website, the Office of Energy Resources website, has an abundance of information. So that could be a good place to start. But yeah, if you have specific things, there could be some experts in our office who could help point you in the right direction of what resources to check out or where to go.
Thank you very much.
And then Susie in the chat. Good to see you again.
Hello, good to see you.
You said, again, for the benefit of newcomers from the public who have limited background in climate, it would be helpful if you provide a super short summary of the state's past history of climate actions in Rhode Island. Do you have something in particular? It's a long story,
No.
but I see something.
I meant like 4 lines of narrative that we could use to engage newcomers. I didn't mean now, but to
Okay.
make sure to get it right, 2014, the revision in 2021, and also what your group, make it clear so we can 0 entry for people entering into the conversation new.
Okay. So a little bit of that background history. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's a good suggestion.
And related to that, may I also ask, I really wanted to second that point about the more information you can provide under each of your headings in your focused meetings. The general public doesn't have any idea about municipal state relations, for instance. And it would be helpful to have some ideas of how does the state climate action strategy impact land use decisions, or, give us I just want to encourage us to speak to the John Q public, so to speak, that once they go, oh, that's what they're talking about, they might have the opportunity to come forward with really particular suggestions. But we can't expect them to have that background if they've not been in this conversation before. So thanks for hearing.
Thank you.
For myself, I'd be curious to know more about how the state plan impacts land use specifically. I mean, what are you looking for there? Or is this too detailed a question for this forum? Let me know.
No, I don't think it's too detailed a question. Are you talking more about like land protection or decisions that like land protection, or more about how decisions that are made that impact just general land use, such as development?
That's exactly the answer.
Okay.
You have to determine that. You need to spell it out, all the different things that will come in that conversation. What the entire purview, smart growth principles, dense ADUs, I don't know, but lay it out so that people have the chance to know, oh, that's how it works. This is where the state has domain over the municipalities and not.
Okay.
Similarly with ocean and water management policies, that's very important. It states limited, right? So thank you for hearing the suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before I sign off? I don't see hands up. I know Marty just put, let me finish my thought. I'm just looking at Marty just put a comment in the chat. So today's session is being recorded, and there's been a few asks in the chat to receive a copy of the slides. Both this recording and the slides will be posted on the climatechange.ri.gov website. Probably not tonight, but we will be putting it under, I'm just going to, for those of you that are either on or have been, or even slightly familiar with the climatechange.ri.gov website, we will probably put it under, I'll drop a link in the chat, but you'll be able to go and find, Rachel, I'm trying to figure out where we should put all this. You can probably go under, it'll probably go under our resources tab. So on climatechange.ri.gov, there's a tab that says resources. You'll be able to find it there. We'll probably actually link it from a few different places, but you will have access to that. And again, if you put in the chat that you would like to receive a direct copy of the slides, Rachel and I will get them to you as soon as this evening or tomorrow morning. There's already been a couple of asks in the chat. Marty wrote, I was wondering if there would be a way to engage the public on energy usage like incentives. Are you talking like energy efficiency things like rebates that are out there for appliances and programs that might be run by Rhode Island Energy? Is that kind of what you're getting at, Marty? Feel free to come off mute if you want to talk more about that, Marty. If not, we can, yes, like rebates. If you would like to, my email is in the chat. If you want to drop an email into the chat, we can connect you probably with someone, Danielle, I'm thinking from the Office of Energy Resources, who could provide some links to where there's more information about drive EV, so EV rebates, heat pumps. We can we can assemble a few resources. It's the kind of thing we need to type up. Most of it, almost everything that you want to know, Marty, is probably on the Office of Energy Resources page, where you can find access to a lot of those rebate information. In addition, with the Rhode Island Energy website, where I was actually just looking at it the other day, there's an incredible list of resources you can tap into about different rebates and incentive programs that they offer. So those are the two main places, but if you would like to email directly, we can assemble some of those resources for you. Great, thank you.
And in terms of engaging the public, it's definitely on our minds to get to as many places as we can. So we do a lot of conferences and tabling events and things like that. And I know Rhode Island Energy does, and Office of Energy Resources does as well. So, you know, if you don't see us out in the community, you can invite us to a public meeting or invite us to an event or a farmer's market or something like that. If there's a particular place where we could engage the public in a town, or if you are part of another group, like a church group or something, we're happy to come present, and we can bring somebody from Office of Energy who has more of the, you know, the knowledge on the specific programs as well.
Danielle, thank you for putting that link right in the chat, and it's what Marty was looking for, but we can share that as well too. For example, what Rachel was just talking about, Rachel and I had a great conversation with about 20 different residents from North Kingstown last week. We were invited by a member, someone that we know who lives in North Kingstown, and said, hey, I have a bunch of people that I talk with on a regular basis about climate. Will you come? So Rachel did a very similar presentation. We had a very similar conversation to tonight. And it was fantastic, kind of just getting to know them, letting them get to know us, and providing them with a lot of the different resources that we've been providing in the chat and all the stuff Rachel's been talking about.
I would be open. Yeah, I'd be open to it. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Well, you have a good night. I'm glad.
Dennis, do you have a question?
Yes, I'm not sure if this is an appropriate question for this forum, but could you talk a little bit about, given the changes in political scene in the federal government, how the state is planning to continue to foster work on climate change? Is there a general strategy that's going on, or are things moving so fast right now that you haven't had a lot of time to really strategize on that?
I think so Terry Gray, the chair of the EC4 Council, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but the state is the different agencies and the different programs. We are all operating under state law. So the Act on Climate that was enacted in 2021, which was the second version of the 2014 Resilient Rhode Island Act. So the state agencies have their marching orders in the form of that particular law, and then also executive orders that Governor McKee has issued in the last couple of years on both resilience, the state leading by example. So we are moving forward 100% full steam on everything that we had planned to before the change in the federal administration. I think the one thing that you're just going to see mostly is that some of the particular rebate programs, or a few of the very specific funding streams that had intended to come to the state under the previous president's IRA program and other, bipartisan infrastructure law, etc. Some of those are going to either stop or slow down or not be, extended in any way, shape, or form. So we will just have to roll with those punches. It just means that we need to have conversations with the members of our General Assembly to see what can be funded out of federal funds in the absence of what can be funded out of state funds in the absence of federal funds. But as far as policy directions, we have regulations on the books Advanced Clean Cars 2, Advanced Clean Trucks. Right now, we're moving forward with that unless there's any indication from the federal government that that needs to change. Our state renewable energy standard is in state law. So we are moving forward. We don't have a crystal ball about what's going to change, but we are moving forward, full force, kind of looking at what's happened at the federal level. It was a little bit of a speed bump, but it's not stopping our efforts. The state climate plan that Rachel and I are talking about, which is due at the end of the year. Again, it's required to be done under state law. And we have every effort of completing that full planning process, and where we need to account for where things have changed at the federal level, where it may impact here at the state level. We will, acknowledge those. We don't have, blinders on or dark glasses on where we're going in eyes wide open. So we will certainly acknowledge those, but the state is moving, full force in effect and ahead on all of its efforts, knowing that the goal is to meet the mandates that are in the state's Act on Climate. Hopefully that answers that. It was a pretty high level question, but high level answer, but we are moving ahead full steam.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep. Susie, thank you for your comment in the chat. And Claire, your question about the annual summit on Saturday, I don't know whether or not anybody is planning on being there. I know I personally am not, but I can find out whether or not there's anybody else who is from DEM. All right. I will drop that link. There's a question about where you put your name in your email address to receive links for today. I'm going to drop the chat again, the link in the chat, so you can go right in. The page I'm about to link to, if you just scroll down, you'll see a button, blue button towards the end that says subscribe. So let me drop that right now. So the link I just put in is where you can find the link to subscribe. Or you can email Rachel and I. Our email addresses I put in the chat as well. You can email us as well, and we can add you the same way. All right, Rachel, anything else? We talked about a lot, and we encourage people to stay engaged. Again, on the climatechange.ri.gov website, there's a right on the homepage, you'll see a list of the events coming up. If you want to come back for more and a very specific conversation on transportation tomorrow at 1 o'clock, it's happening online. So you can find information on the homepage of climatechange.ri.gov.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
And
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye, Sarah.